Hi friends, welcome to the first Kate City Garden of 2021, which can only mean one thing, and that is that it is planting time. So happy spring. I know we're a couple of ways from it being officially spring, but I kind of like to go with that Celtic old agricultural calendar where spring actually begins and what kind of seems like the depths of winter when there's the quickening that happens in the soil, and you can start to see that when you see all of those little bulbs coming up around your neighborhood. But it is it won't be by the time I probably send this out on YouTube, but it is March 3rd today, so it's definitely the very beginning of March. And I am going to get some veggies and some flowers started today. So I'm going to show you my really funny setup here. We're in my garage, and there's sort of one little bump out and a big window that comes in there. So hang on, I'm going to show you this. So here is that window. Here is the garage with the boys' vintage automobile that just kind of lives here all the time. So it's a good thing it has that cover on it because I do my gardening in here. And this is my setup. Let's see if I can kind of get it so you can see here. But there's, I might have to back up a little bit. So I've sort of rigged a way to stand because this little platform thing that goes over my garden shed, which you've seen a lot of last year. So that kind of bumps out over, and there's a ladder that goes up there, and then another ladder that goes up to our crawl space. But what I've done is I've suspended three, I used to do fluorescents, but these are actually LED light bulbs in there. But fluorescents are great too. And I've got these three long hanging units that I screwed up way into the ceiling up there. And I've got some chains, and then I've got these sort of pulleys here. So this is kind of my little Rube Goldberg seed starting area. And let's see if I can show you. What I've got here is this is a kind of a square made of 2x4s, and it's got sand in it, but that sand is covering, you can kind of see, move this, one of the cables there. These are heating cables that I've laid in so that I can have a little bottom heat for all of the plants, vegetables, flowers, seeds that I might be starting, and that helps get them going. So that seems like a kind of elaborate setup. It just shows you what happens when you start to become obsessed with gardening and growing your own vegetables, what have you. But none of that is really necessary for starting seeds. You can start seeds inside in the warmth of your house. Some people like to put their seed starting trays on the refrigerator because that gives a little bottom heat. There are, and I have one of these as well, there are these little mats that you can buy that are heating mats that give sort of a low level heat, so that you don't want it to be too warm, but just sort of gives those seeds the feeling that, okay, the weather is changing here, it's starting to get more spring-like. So there are lots of things you can do. You can even just put it in a warm, sunny windowsill to get started, and then later will come the process of hardening off, which we will talk about later. But I don't want you to be kind of cowed by my little setup here. But what I want to do today is walk you through kind of the basics of getting these seeds started at the beginning of the year. And I know we've done some seed starting last summer. That's kind of a different thing because it's summertime already, and sort of everything's sort of primed for seeds to just sort of jump right up. So when it's March and you live in a northern zone like we do in Seattle, you want to kind of give them everything that they need to feel like they can get started. So that's what we're going to work on today. All right, so I have got the light. I've used the pulleys and moved those up, so I've got a nice surface here to work. And I have this bucket that I am going to use to mix my seed starting mix with water. And let me just show you this bag. So this looks like a big bag of seed starting mix, but it is really light. And it's because it's mostly just peat moss in there. You know, when I watch my favorite English gardening shows, and they always say, try to avoid the peat-filled mixes if you can, because I think they're really trying to preserve the peat bogs over there. Unfortunately, here in the States, I find it's just really difficult to find that mix without peat in it. And I'm not sure if there are peat bogs over here that are maybe not as endangered, or I have no idea, or just lack of regulations, quite probably. But so what we want to do here, so this is so light, and I'm going to show you what this is like when I cutting it open. Put some here. Actually, that's going to take a long time, I think, so I'm just going to dump this right into my bucket. And you'll see, I don't know if you can see from over there, but it looks really powdery and very dry, very light. So this stuff, it's really powdery. And the thing about anything with peat in it is that it's really difficult for it to sort of absorb water. I don't think I'm saying that correctly, because it actually holds underwater well, but it takes a while to sort of get it mixed in there. It's just kind of one of the qualities about it. So it's best, I find, to mix in the water beforehand, before you put it into your seed trays. And that is going to make all the difference, because if you try to put it in there first and then just water on the top, it's just going to, it's hydrophobic, so it's just going to kind of sit on the top. So here I'm starting with a little bit here. It can absorb a lot of water. All right. So as you can see, that water that I've mixed in seems to have hardly made a dent. It's still super powdery. So we're pouring a nice big amount there. And we're just going to keep going. And you'll start to see that it kind of will start to clump after a little while. At some point I'm probably going to start to use my gloved hands here. Maybe that time is now to sort of feel what's going on. There we go. Starting to be the consistency that I want. When I was a kid, we lived for a little while, well, a couple different times we lived there. We were a military family, moved back and forth, but we lived in this farmhouse outside of Syracuse, New York. And it was such an idyllic place, and it had this huge garden. And so my dad, he's the one I would say really got me into gardening. I remember he got these giant bags of peat moss to mix into the garden to kind of give it some more moisture. I don't know that I would do that today. I think, you know, this really is low in nutrients. I think that was just for something he was doing. But he got these giant bags and he put them, I can't remember whether it was in wheelbarrows or big piles. And my brother and I took off our shoes, and he had us stomp in the water like we were, you know, kids stomping grapes for wine in Italy or something. But I remember that was kind of fun. I remember it was cold. but it was kind of a cool little family activity. Okay, I think that this is about right. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's all kind of, you know, got this clumpiness, and that's actually good. That means it's holding water. You don't see the peat sort of billowing up in powder form like it was before. So what we're going to do is I've got these two, a little odd because we've got this bright sunlight in here, and then we have the LED lights, so it's making kind of interesting shadows. But I've got these two trays over here, and we are going to fill them up, and then we are going to start planting them. All right, so we've got my little seed tray. Fill in that. Started off with a scoop, but I always almost end up using my hands here. I'm glad I got the large bag of seedling mix because I've got a lot of seeds to plant to get the season going. My hope is that all of you watching have gotten through this winter all right. I know it's really felt like a long one, hasn't it? And I just hope all of you and yours have been healthy and making it through this very strange time. All right. So some of you might remember from last summer I have this little tamper when I'm planting. Very homespun. Little 2 screws in 2 pieces of wood. And I just like to use that to make a nice little flat surface here. So that's what we're gonna do. And I have something new for planting this year. I'm gonna use a little bit of it right now, and I'll use more after I transplant into the potting soil. So the thing to know about this seedling mix is that it's sterile. And it's because of a couple of reasons. So it doesn't need to have nutrients because the seed itself contains all the nutrients, kind of like an egg for the plant, for up until it gets its true leaves. So the first leaves that come out are called the cotyledons, and they are they still are the sort of not true leaves, but once it gets the leaves that actually look like the leaves of the plant, then it will really start growing and starting to need nutrients from potting soil, which is a different formula. But one thing, so I've got these here, these mosquito dunks, because I created that pond last year, and this kind of keeps mosquitoes from breeding in a pond. It has this ingredient in it called BT, which is I'm just making sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, even though I've known about it for many years, but it's more Bacillus thuringiensis. So yeah, Bacillus thuringiensis is how you pronounce the full scientific name of this this little creature that actually kills the larval form of different kinds of insects like mosquitoes, but also the reason I'm using it in here is because I have had some issues with fungus gnats, and that can come, you can get those in greenhouses, or if you have houseplants at home. I have no friends who've had to deal with fungus gnats. So I'm going to try something this year. I'm not too worried about them at this stage, so I'm not going to do, and either way, I think you don't need to use too much, but once I transplant them into their pots, I'm going to start to use more. So here, I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. I'm just rubbing my finger over it, and it's just leaving a bit of a fine powder. Oops, dropped it in there. And you definitely want to do this with gloved hands. I'm not sure you'd want to get this mosquito dunks rubbed into your skin. And now, just going to water that in a bit. I need to have a watering can out here that has a rose on it, which makes more of a sprinkler effect. Gotta get me one of those. All right, but the reason I just did a little bit there on top is so that that kind of causes that BT to go in there and activate it a little bit. All right, we'll just leave these two together as we begin. So I have my basket of seeds here, and I've got many vegetable seeds. Usually order from Territorial. They are our longtime Northwest seed company, and it's not a bad idea to order from a seed company that is in your area, and they usually have adapted seeds. And Territorial is kind of known for making seeds that grow well in Seattle or Portland area, basically west of the Cascades. So yeah, so I am going to start some tomatoes right now in here, and I'm not doing a bunch of tomatoes this year. But I have this Ruby Crush did really well for me last year. It's kind of like a grape style. Yeah, it is a grape style tomato. So a small one. It's kind of similar to a cherry. You can make your Instagram worthy feta tomato sauce with those, and also the ever popular Sun Gold. I know my my partner Adam. He keeps a couple of small beds outside of his office, which has a lot of sun exposure, and he loves to just grow sun golds that he can go out and snack on. And then I'm also planting this Japanese Trifele, see if that's focusing on there, Japanese Trifele Black. And it's something that I think that I have grown years ago. I'm trying to remember, but it's remember I being a really delicious. This one is 80 to 85 days, whereas of course these grape tomatoes and cherry tomatoes are like 65 to 70 or 65 days for the Sun Gold. Sun Gold's very fast coming up. So this is more like, your typical tomatoes that are going to take a while to mature. So that's another reason why we want to start them early here in March. Now it's tricky, right? Because they're still not, remember, this is not like a native a latitude for a tomato, so you have to do all these kind of tricky things to get it going. You want to grow it over, plant them over heat, under lights, and make sure that they're getting enough light to kind of get a bit stocky before you plant them out, or before you have to kind of go in stages. So just showing you one thing that I have over there is this vintage fan. It's not something I would use in the house because it's one of those old-fashioned fans where if my cats were around, they could stick their paw in and be hurt quite a bit, or, you wouldn't want any little kids to come over and have a problem with that. But it's fine out here in the garage. And what I'm going to do is when these tomatoes actually come up, I'm going to turn that fan on, and what it's going to do is create a light breeze to keep those stalks moving, the stems moving, and that's really important because it imitates wind and it helps those stems get stronger. So again, that goes along with what you have to do when you're starting seeds inside. You have to mimic all of these outside forces. Plants have evolved over many years to utilize things like wind to help make that be stronger, and you have to sort of recreate those on your own. So I am going to start here with start with the Ruby Crush. This is, I did not order very many. I think they only, wow, this is almost just like a sample pack. Very few Ruby Crush seeds in here, but I'm going to make sure to give them a good amount of space. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm going to hold my thumb there so that I know where this was planted. So that's about right. Okay, made a little mark in there, and I'm going to write on here. By the way, I usually use popsicle sticks. I thought I had some, but I just couldn't find them. So, you know, I had these little battens that I just cut up. But we're going to write Ruby. I'm going to use the Sharpie. It's going to be easier on here. Ruby Crush. All right. There we go. Wow, that was fast. There were hardly any in there. Let's see how many I got of the Sun Gold. Similar situation here, not so many seeds. I think what was happening is that this next size up seemed to have so many. But it's not a bad idea to order the larger package because they usually are going to stay fine. They will keep fine until the next year. All right. This time I'm going to be smart. I'm going to write the name of the final one. So I've got Sun Gold here, and then we'll put the Japanese Trifele Black. Okay. Oh, a lot more of these. I think I remembered that I really like these, so I'm going to save some of this package for next year. Actually, I think what I just poured out is enough. So you really do want to plant sparingly. It's so easy to start way too many seeds, and then if they grow thickly, you have to start to separate them from one another, and that usually means that one of them has to go. So you want to give yourself a good chance of them coming up, but you don't want to do too many. All right, so I'm actually going to do this part with my bare hands, but all of these are, say, to cover by a 1/4 inch. So we're just going to shake a bit here on top just to cover them. Another little wish list item I would love to have is a little sifter to do this job. And here we go. And, you know, the reason for this, the most important reason for this tamper is that you really want to get those seeds to have good contact with the soil. They will not be, instigated to grow without that contact. So there we go. The tomatoes done. So actually what we're going to do next is, I've got this cookie sheet and I'm going to put it under, I don't know if you guys remember from last year, but we're going to do some bottom watering. So I know that I moistened that, I moistened that seedling mix, but that's not exactly watering them. So, and you want to do, especially with seeds, is when you really want to do this bottom watering so it doesn't kind of, you know, if you water on top, it can move them out of place. So, you can see here, this is sitting in, you know what, I might use the other, let's see if the other one is flatter. That one seemed more convex, or yeah, convex than concave, which is, oh yeah, this feels much better. This is what I'll use. And now, we're just going to kind of come up the sides of that, and that should osmote up into the soil itself. All right, so we'll